All right, in this video, we're going to start working with Cinema 4D, which is a 3D program that we can incorporate into our motion graphics workflow. You can use it for style frames. You can use it for animations. I'm currently using an educational version. Maxon currently has a 6-month renewable Maxon 1 license. It only costs $2.99. I think it's a great deal. So if you're able to get this as a student or a teacher with a .edu email address or some other sort of relationship, I would highly recommend this. I'm using that that version right now. So I'm going to jump into Cinema 4D here, and I think if this is the first time you've used a 3D program or if the first time you've seen Cinema 4D, this could be a little bit intimidating. So I want to kind of just do an overview of some of the things here and maybe give you a layout of the land. We're currently in a layout called the startup layout. Now there are different layouts here, and sometimes people will get stuck in other ones. There are ones that are good for animation or better for animation. Some are better for rigging and stuff like that. But I think the startup is a good way to approach this. All right, so let's take a look at some things here. I think one confusing thing is that there's kind of like toolbars going horizontally and vertically. These things I would consider working more on objects and for modeling or changing some different attributes along or for objects. And these tools are more general tools: selection tools, move tools, rotate. You can add basic objects like primitives and things like that. Splines are going to go in here. There's some other functions here. They're kind of grouped by categories. These are NURBs that will let you kind of create 3D forms. Some other looks like effectors are being grouped in here, and generally like these are fields, which are a pretty powerful feature. Deformers, so things that will let you kind of edit the shape and look of things. Some different assets: floor, sky, stage. Cameras will go in here. Lights will go in here, and then these are some of the render options. And there you go. You can see these are on this side. A lot of these things can be accessed through here, this menu up at the top. So it's like there's menus within menus. I would also say, if we're looking at areas, this is like one group on the left-hand side. This is a group up at the top. You got all your menu items here. I would say these things also kind of generally work together. You'll have your objects, anything you put in here. So if I wanted to put in like a cube, it'll pop in here. And then generally when I click on this, the attributes or different elements will be in here, and if I had layers or other things, I can toggle between them. So normally, like I'll be working in here. These are all my assets. There's also something called takes, and there's other elements that you might want to pull up in here. But looking at this as a group is helpful, and then playback features are in here. So play, forward, rewind, all those kinds of things. There's ways to toggle keyframing here, and down here in this little area is where you put your material. So if you wanted to make a material, and a material is like a texture, it would go here, and we'll go over this some more, but materials, they generally operate with channels, which are on this vertical column, and you can turn them on and off, and you can click on different channels. Like this is not on until I click that, and you can see that had an effect. Luminance is the light of it, and then if you click on something, you can change the properties of that. So and then if I wanted to put a material just to do something here, you can just click and drag it on, or you could click and drag it on up here. Okay, so general lay of the land. Let's talk about maybe getting around and what you're seeing here. This represents your default camera. This tells you what view you're in. You can actually see multiple views by going up to this button right here and clicking it, and you'll see the 4 views. And so this is helpful in 3D to know, this is a top view, front view, and a right view, and you can rotate around here. I like to keep these views as they are. I don't like to rotate them or mess with them. I might scale in and out or zoom in and out. You can use your mouse, or you can scroll up and down. I'm going to go back into this view right here, and you can go back into it by clicking that corner button again. And just to show you, to get around in here, to navigate, I can hold down 1 and pan to the side, or I guess I just need to press it once to activate it. I can hit 2, and actually, in this case, I do need to hold it down, or actually, I don't need to hold it down. So I hit 2 to, I guess I'm in the habit of holding it down, but it looks weird because I have this Keycaster app down here, and it bugs me that it's doing that. So this lets me zoom in and out. 3 lets me rotate around the object. So this to me is like a really easy way to navigate and get around. If you wanted to move this object, there's a few things you could do. You can go in the attributes. If you move and edit it, you could change the size this way, right? You can go into the coordinates, and I can't see it all, but I could scale it this way. I can rotate it this way and do all these things here, move it. But I can also move these things with keyboard commands. If I hit E, it's going to activate this axis here that lets me move it around. And so just to show you too, that does change there. So I'm moving it, and moving around too. These axes, you see the red arrow represents the X direction, which is horizontal, Y is up and down, and Z is kind of forward and backward, the depth. So that's what those mean. If you want to go to rotate, you hit R, and they'll activate this axis. And what I can do is rotate around here. One thing to know is if I can do it more in a free-form way, or if I hover over an axis or one of these, curves, you'll see it turns white. And that lets me only rotate in that one direction. So that's kind of helpful sometimes. I would say the same thing happens with all of these commands. I can go only in one direction, or I can just kind of go free-form and move it around. And then T is going to let me, and T I'm going to need to hold down. It's going to let me scale it, so I can, again, scale everything all at once. So E, move it, R, rotate it, T, scale it, transform it. I guess those are things that you can remember. So that is just a quick overview of this program getting around, and we'll go into some more examples on how you might use this next. Okay, one thing I'm going to do right now is actually take something that maybe people are more familiar with, which is a vector file in Illustrator, and this is outlined. You can see those splines there. And I wanted to show a way to take this and bring it into Cinema 4D and make it 3D. So what we're going to do is basically we need to save this as an older Illustrator file format. So we're going to call this, maybe I'll just say Google 3D. And when we save it down, we actually want to save it down to Illustrator 8 version. So you're going to get this warning that's saying it's a legacy format. That's fine. Okay, that's been saved out. Let's go back into Cinema 4D, and let's, so up on this side in the objects panel here, we're going to go to merge objects. And here's that Google 3D file that we saved. Remember, this is saved down in Illustrator 8. We can scale this as it is, but we'll just kind of leave that like that. Scale is 1 centimeters. We can always change that. Actually, that might be a little bit too small, so maybe I'll undo that. And again, this is what happens if you want to scale it up. Or again, we probably could have scaled this, on its own. Actually, if we hold down T, right, we can scale that up. So a few ways to go about this. Okay, so I have this spline here, and you can see it's not 3D. It's just this kind of path information, and you can see all the letters are separated. What we're going to do is need to make it 3D by going up to Extrude. And one thing that's helpful is, sometimes it's hard to remember where all these things are. If you know that it's an extrude, you can search for it by hitting Shift+C, and you can search extrude, and that will come up that way. Okay, so we have this extrude element in here. What we need to do is drag these splines and put it underneath the extrude. And what you do is you make it a child of the extrude. So there's a parent and child relationship. The parent is one level up, and then the child is one level down into it. Okay, so it's still not doing anything, and that's because since we have multiple splines here, we actually need to click on the extrude, go to this object area, and hit hierarchical, and that will move it around. That's quite odd. This L got like really misplaced. That's quite odd that it's doing that. I guess what I could do is move this spline back. Again, not really sure why it did that, but here's where it might be helpful to go into the 3D view and or the multiple view and make sure it just lines up. Yeah, again, that's a little bit odd to me. It looks like it got offset by, I think, 100. So if we want to be really precise, and the reason I think it's 100 is because I think that if we go up to the object up here, the offset was 100. So I think for some reason it just came in a little bit weird like that. Okay, I guess that be prepared for things like that to happen, but now you know how to fix it. We can change the offset. So again, you select one of these things and you usually get the properties down here. So if that's too 3D for you, we're gonna have this issue. It's gonna keep happening where I guess we're gonna have to move it and offset it. So if we want it to be like 40, I think what we'll need to do is, and maybe I'll just double click into this and write L so I know which one it is. And I'm just gonna offset it 40, I believe, and that will, we're just kind of compensating for that. Okay. So that looks okay to me. Okay, so in the extrude as well, we can mess around with the properties here. One thing I do want to show is the caps. So if you look at this type, it's got a really straight edge, which sometimes you'll want, but you can also add kind of a bevel to this. So if you can see now it's getting a little bit softer, we can change what that looks like. That's probably too much, but you can mess around with these. There are different options. Right now it's a round. You could have it stepping, which gives you that stepped effect, and you could have the number of steps. So yeah, there's some things that you can do here that come within the normal settings. I think I just want a little bit of rounding, just soften it up a little bit. And yeah, I think we're ready to go from this point. The next thing I want to do is actually get the colors from the logo and color this out. So one thing that I need to look at is, if let's say I have a material. So again, we can add a material here. I'm just going to use a standard material. The materials are all at the bottom. This is not one of the colors, but I just wanted to show you, if I brought this onto one of the paths like this, it's not going to change color because the path is not a 3D element, but I could bring this onto the extrude and then the whole thing changes. The issue though is that all these letters are different colors. So if we wanted to make them different colors, that we're gonna have to do something else here. So one thing I can do is reduce this down into individual elements. So I could make all these elements here turn into individual extrudes and then style them that way. What I can do is click on this and hit C, or the command I'm looking for is make editable. So you can do that. I do want to show you that once I do that, it kind of reduces it down into these different elements. So it's G-O-O or G-O-G-O-L-E. One thing that happens is now that if I want to make any changes to these, I've got to change them all individually. So sometimes it's helpful. I'm going to actually undo what I just did. And you might want to like save a copy of this, you know, just to have an editable version. What you could do is put it into, or you could maybe just turn it off. You can select these buttons to turn that off. If it's red, it's the top circle is the editor view. So if I turn this off, you'll see it disappears from the editor view. The bottom is the render view. So this is a way to keep that asset in there for you maybe to mess around with if you ever need it. But you know, maybe I'll just call this the geometry or something, or extrusion copy or something, you know. So in case I ever need it, I'll go and use this version and hit C to make it editable, and we have that. And I'm not sure if I said this, but the way I copied this is I hold down Control, and you can always make copies this way. Control, click and drag. Okay, so hopefully that's not too much of a detour, but let's go and start coloring this in. I'm going to go into my file and just make sure and grab these colors. So I'm just clicking on this, and I believe I should be able to just, well, either the hex code or I might need to grab the RGB values. So we can go into color and let's see, here's the hex code. So there are different ways that you can denote color. This is a way for me to get that blue, so I can grab that, put that on there. Yeah, let's go. Let's do this quickly. What's this red color? Whoops, I accidentally changed it, but I'll undo that. Let's get this red. Maybe I'll just control and click and drag to just grab it really quickly. Got that. Okay. Let's keep going. The yellow. Just copying and pasting this. Click and drag. Okay. And we have this green color that I need to grab. Oops. That's fine. All right. So we've got our colors here, all ready to go. And I think it's, let me make sure I got this right. Okay. Red, yellow, and shoot, what was that last one? Red, okay. Okay, there we go. So now we got our logo. If I want to preview what this looks like right now, so this is still kind of an editor view, I could hit Command R, and it'll give me like a little render preview. Right now this is using default lighting, but since we're just getting started, maybe we can just start with this, and then we'll talk about getting into lights and other things later. But yeah, this is at least just the beginning of what this looks like. Maybe we can do a simple animation. So let's talk a little bit about keyframing. This is your timeline here, and you can drop keyframes along here. Now, you can do it inside of here, or some people also like to bring up different views in here. So there is also a view of the timeline as a dope sheet or of an F-curve. Let's just first start by dropping some keyframes. So let's say we just wanted this to kind of rise up. Maybe it starts here. So the way we can drop a keyframe is by clicking on this button. It's going to drop a keyframe and you see it turned red. The keyframe changed there. Unlike After Effects, when you make changes here, it doesn't automatically register them, you need to press that button again. So let's say I wanted to go up 100 centimeters. I'm gonna press the button again, and when I go to play it, now you can see that it moves up like that. Maybe we'll add like one little touch to, maybe we'll do a little rotation. The other thing I wanted to show you is that there is an anchor point here. You can see it's kind of hovering above that. If you want to remove the anchor point, you do need to access this side panel. So right now it's on the model mode, but you can select textures, points, edges, polygons, and you can also get the axis. So I could select the axis and rotate that, or if, like, let's say I want this to rotate around maybe the bottom of this O. Make sure you deselect that when you're done editing. I think that might have changed my animation a little bit. I probably want to do that in the very beginning, but let's say I wanted it to start rotating, or maybe it rotates like upwards. Maybe it starts at like -90, and again, you can see the keyframes here. So maybe it, maybe it finishes the rotation a little bit earlier. So there we go. We just have a little move, and you can click and drag and move these around. All right. So one thing to note is that Cinema 4D automatically puts in some easing onto this. So if we go into the window, and actually I want to go to the F curve, which is kind of like the graph editor in Adobe After Effects. You can see that these are the values. This is the value axis, and this is time represented by frames. And so you can see that there's that easing going on, and you can play with this. Like if you want this to happen at a different rate, you can pull those Bezier handles, you can select them individually. So right now I think this is, we can open this up to see. This is position, rotation, and this is the position. So again, if we want this to be faster or slower, we can pull this out a little bit. And we can adjust it this way. So what does that look like? And let's say we want this to slow down a little bit more. So we'll just kind of flatten out that curve. There we go. So yeah, we've just made a little animation here. And from here, I should also say the other thing you can look at, especially if you have a lot of keyframes, is the dope sheet. And this just gives you the position, but it's nice because it's fairly easy to just click and drag these. If you need more space, you move them around. And imagine if you had a lot of elements animated here. This is pretty helpful. All right, so let's go and talk about how to render this out now. Okay, so we have this animation and we're ready to export this out. Now, one thing I also want to show is, right now there's a lot of empty space at the end. Maybe I only need this to go up to 75 frames. We can change the project settings by just typing it in here, so I can make it 75, or if this is too short, I can make it 180, and this is editable, and we can set the range here. So let's say 75. Right now, it's gonna export whatever is in my view right now. So we'll do something simple, and then maybe we'll do what we have right now, and then maybe we'll do something with the camera later. I just want to go through this. So what we need to do is go up into our render settings. So that's up here, or it's also Command B. And here you can see the different outputs. We're going to stick with the standard renderer right now, but we'll maybe look at physical later. So you can set the size for this. Let's say we wanted this to be HD. It needs to be 1920 by 1080. So we can set that in pixels. Resolution 72, that's fine. We do want it square pixels. And here's the range. So we could export just one frame of this, which is great for style frames. Or we can get all frames, or we could do manual, tell it how many to do. So this is pretty flexible, but right now I'll just do all frames. Let's keep it relatively simple for this first one. We do need to say where it goes out and the file format. So a few different thoughts on this. We could just get an MOV or an MP4 file, pre-rendered video. It's a good practice to export frames as a sequence. A lot of times PNG sequence will be good, and that's because sometimes when you're rendering there's an error in one of the frames, and if you try to do it as an MP4 or MOV, it would corrupt the whole video. So by doing a PNG sequence, if there's something wrong with one frame, you could just fix that one frame or a few frames, and you wouldn't lose the render time, because you'll see that this is going to be pretty fast, but later on, if you have a really big scene with lights and all those things, it could take hours, it could take days, and you can't really afford to lose that much time if there's an error. And a lot of people, when they composite, they like to work with these sequences. Let's keep it simple. I'll just do an MOV file for right now, just so we can get the final result already. Let me save this. So I'll call this Google V1, our first version. I won't go into the options too much, but there's so many different things that you could add here and play around with. I should say I'm not using a render engine like Redshift or Octane. I'm just using the standard renderer from here. Then if we want to render this, we could hit render to picture viewer, just this button, and it's going to start to render this out. And you can see it goes frame by frame, and it's slowly building all these out. One thing I didn't check is, so right now there's a black background, which is just the default background. And actually, I feel like I should stop this, because I want to talk about what an alpha channel is. An alpha channel lets us kind of work with transparency. And in this case, I could export this out so that only the 3D forms are rendered, and that background is something that I can then replace. So you would activate that by hitting alpha channel. And I might actually just stop this, because I actually think I do want that. So it's going to say, do you want to stop it? That's fine. And I'm going to overwrite the files that I just started. But I'm going to render this out and then show you the result from that. All right, so my file has finished rendering. You can see this is the movie file that was created. And I'm going to take this into Adobe After Effects right now. So here's a new project, and I will bring in that file. Was it this one? There we go. So this is that movie file, and maybe I'll make a new composition, and we'll bring this on top. Oops. With the alpha channel that was saved, there's two files. One is an alpha channel, and you can see it's white on black. Let me just show you what that is, and that we can use to mask this out. So what we can do is in our comp, if we bring both of these in, I'll bring and it was saved as A, so A for alpha. We can actually make a track matte out of this. We'll say use in this case, I think we can use the Luma matte. There we go. And so that white is going to just mask this out. And so this enables us to get rid of that black background. So that was the benefit of doing that. And now maybe we have a little bit more control over this, or, one thing I'm noticing, it's like, hey, this isn't really centered. I should have centered that before, but now that I have it in here and it's separated, I could actually probably just move it like this and, do some compositing action here. So that feels a little bit better to me. Again, we didn't even do any lighting on this, so like for me, the lighting feels like a little bit harsh, a little bit dark on the edges. You know, you might want to run. Again, we're thinking about. I like to think about the 3D elements as things that we work with. You could do some color correction on it. Maybe you play with the levels, and maybe instead of levels, I'll do some color correction here. Maybe curves. Maybe I could pull that a little bit. Maybe some hue and saturation. Maybe we'll saturate a little bit more. And yeah, maybe we can keyframe this a little bit. So maybe, I think what's happening is the lighting is changing. It's like really saturated and dark there. I might want to pull it down here. Okay, so this is just one example of taking something, a workflow using some vector assets, bringing it into Cinema 4D, and then ultimately we're playing with it in After Effects and compositing and getting the final look of this, and you can add other elements to this as well.